Guys, how's it going, and welcome back. So this video is about what you were not told when you bought that nice new 4K TV or 4K monitor. So we're all buying into this whole 4K, 8K stuff. 4K has hardly even gotten off the ground in the world when it comes to DVD Blu-ray movies. And one of the things you weren't told when you bought that 4K TV was that you're going to need a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray player and 4K movies to watch 4K on that wonderful new TV set. That is one thing you were not told. The other thing you weren't told was that there are no cable or satellite companies currently in the world right now that are putting out any kind of 4K media on their packages. Okay, so when we all get cable packages and we get satellite packages, we pick through a pile of channels, including HD. Now, we can get HD stuff, that's not a problem, but we can't get anything in 4K because these boxes that we use from our cable or satellite companies are not capable of putting out anything beyond 1080. And usually it's either 1080p or 1080i. Okay, in the case of satellite, the recommended is actually 1080i, which is interlaced. P is progressive scanning. Of course, that will also depend on your supplier. We're with Shaw, so we get 1080i as the recommended output. Works quite well, but it also means you're going to have to screw around with a lot of settings on the TV to get an awesome picture out of it either way. Okay. Now, with Blu-ray movies playing on a 4K TV, especially a big 4K TV, you're definitely going to have to go through some settings on that TV to clean that picture up so that it looks absolutely awesome, because none of the factory defaults are going to work well enough for you to give you that really sweet picture of that Blu-ray HD movie. Okay? So we've gone through this ourselves. We recently bought a Bulva 65-inch TV, and even playing The Last Starfighter and Finding Nemo, we had to, in the end, we had to go through a lot of different settings and figure out the optimal settings in order to get an outstanding picture on that. Now, it did work for that particular set of movies for HDMI input from the DVD Blu-ray player. So then we went back to the TV HDMI port. We changed its settings to be identical, and we did the same thing with our other HDMI source as well, and the TV is just awesome. But it is still not 4K. It is all 1080p, which is something you're not being told. You're only going to be able to view in 1080p. So when it comes to gaming consoles, you have the other thing, right? In order to play 4K gaming quality on a 4K TV, you have to have a gaming console that not only outputs 4K, but the game has to be specifically written for the 4K level. Okay, it will not really upscale your older games that are non-4K, but they will look better. Okay, once you get your settings all set up. And like I said, we chose to go with the exact same settings on all three HDMI buses. We have a PS4 that came as a bundle package with our 4K TV. So we just used the same settings for every bus line, and everything is fantastic. And that's a good thing, but it's still not 4K. We're not getting 4K. So now for us to get 4K, we have to actually go out and buy a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray DVD player. Now, the other thing you'll find too is with Blu-ray standard and regular DVDs, if you try to push the TV's preferences to the 4K setting, it's going to scramble your picture, which really sucks. Now, on TV, you can get away with it and it doesn't scramble the picture for some reason. I don't know why, but it certainly does do it on the Blu-ray movie side. On the PS4, we can set the TV to 4K, and it doesn't seem to affect it. I don't know why it's just doing it to Blu-rays, but it's doing it. So not exactly the best thing. So now we got to put out more money, and then we got to buy 4K specific movies just to see what it's like to watch 4K movies. Other than that, you can get 4K if you are buying a smart TV, obviously, because they do have smart and non-smart 4K. But if you've bought a smart TV, you can have things like Netflix and other things, right? None of those are going to show in 4K on your TV unless the movie specifies that it was done up in 4K. Another thing, there's not a lot out there in 4K right now, even for movies. The same as video games, right? The PS4 Pro is a 4K capable machine for gaming. Not very many titles are 4K. It's very expensive for the gaming industry to rewrite those games for 4K graphics. So then we go into the new PS5 that just got released. Now it's a 4K machine, right? Again, not many games that are 4K ready. So yeah, and you can play on a PS5. You can actually play all your old PS4 titles, which is nice because on a PS4 itself, you cannot go backwards to PS3, right? But you can go backwards from PS5 to PS4 and play all your PS4 titles on your new PS5. But again, like I said, no 4K resolutions unless the game is actually at 4K. Then it can put out a 4K signal. Otherwise, it's all 1080p. So what have you really spent your money on when you think about this? I mean, we've been shaking our heads for the last, couple of weeks going like, did we really buy a 4K TV or do we really buy a 1080? Well, as long as we have satellite, we basically bought a 1080 because the 4K is not there, right? Until we get a 4K DVD Blu-ray and 4K movies for it, we definitely do not have 4K quality coming in our face, which really sucks. The gaming part, I'm not too worried about that. I kind of knew already that the PS4 that I bought was not 4K. However, I don't know everything, and 4K stuff is kind of new to me in the whole TV world. And it's like, well, anyways, so these are things you're not told. So a lot of hype gets put out on commercials, even YouTube videos where companies are promoting 4 and 8K TVs. You can't even watch 8K. There is absolutely nothing in 8K right now. So how are you going to watch 8K? And really, is it worth going from 4 to 8K? Honestly, I don't think it's going to be worth the money. It really isn't. I mean, look at 3D TV. It didn't last very long, did it? No, of course not. Too many people got migraines from watching 3D movies, and not many titles came out, and it kind of died. Same as curved TVs are kind of dying really quick. Now, for the gaming industry, yeah, curved screens are great. So let's get on to your gaming PC. Don't bother buying a 4K monitor for your PC unless you have enough horsepower under that hood of a video card to be able to produce the 4K graphics, right? Now, I have a fairly high-end PC, and it can easily put out 2K. That's not an issue. And so I have a 1440p monitor for it. Now, my monitor also is an LG monitor that's 1440p, like I said. Now, it can actually produce and go to 4K without any hassle if I have the horsepower for it. Now, the nice thing about a Macintosh computer is you don't need near the horsepower on a Mac than you do on a PC to produce a 4K or 5K image. In fact, the iMac behind me is a late 2015 iMac 5K Retina, and so it has 5K graphics already, which we talked about in an earlier video. When it comes to, you record a 4K video yourself, you're never viewing that 4K footage unless you have a computer with at least a 4K screen at a 4K resolution. And it's very costly to do that on a PC, but not so much on a Mac. Apple laptops have never done 4K, and they still don't, internally or externally. And only a few of their iMac computers do actually 5K. And this is one of them that does. Now out my back bus line, I can actually hook in two 4K displays on top of my internal 5 with no performance suffering, or I can go to a single 6K out the back, again no performance suffering, and yet I only have 2 gigs of video in this sucker. My PC has got a 4 gig video card and it can just do that 2K resolution at the display port without any issues. So you're going to spend a boatload of money and you want to put a 4K display on your gaming PC, you're going to have more money invested in a gaming PC to get to 4K than you ever would in a Mac. In fact, I could probably buy 3 or 4 iMac computers or a really sick Mac Pro plus one of these for what it's going to cost you just to get 4K video viewability out of your PC. Very expensive proposition on a Windows computer. So, you know, you're wasting your money unless you're willing to put out a boatload extra just to get your computer up to snuff to run a 4K display. And a lot of people are cheaping out. They're buying 4K monitors. 4K TVs for their PCs. I almost did it. My choice was a 43-inch 4K LG TV. It was nice to put that on my PC. Because I thought, oh great, I could do 4K off the display port. I should be able to. I could do it on a Mac with 2 gigs, right? Yeah, it takes software and hardware to work together. So I was kind of on the fence going, I'm not sure that's really going to work on the PC. I know it'll work on the Mac, but the PC, we're really not sure if we got the horsepower to push 4K. And we don't, right? So I did an awful lot of research into that before even thinking about putting a 4K monitor on my PC. So the end result was I got this LG display that's actually basically 2K. It's 1440, right? And I thought, okay, good. We're off the display port, which is what we have to use. You can't just go to HDMI, apparently, and throw HDMI busting to your PC monitor and expect it to put out 1440. Apparently that's only done through the display port. Okay, cool. I'm fine with that. And it works just peachy cream and fine. However, on the Mac, I don't have to do anything. I just plug it in and I got 4K that I can switch this monitor over to, which I've done it and proved it many times. Even though the monitor is not marketed as a 4K monitor, it will go 4K off the Mac, and this is only a $400 monitor, which is really sweet. You know, figured, yeah, that kind of works for me. I kind of like that. So these are things you're not told when you buy your 4K monitor or your 4K TV to slap on your PC or just watch your 4K videos, because you're not. Now the only other way other than Netflix and Amazon Prime packages and what have you that are actually putting out 4K videos on their streaming systems, the only other way you can see 4K on your computer, oh wait, you can't. You got to get a 4K screen going, and that's going to be expensive as heck. On a 4K TV though, you do have the YouTube app. And if somebody has actually put on a 4K video on YouTube, you can watch that and stream it on your TV and switch the preference pane to 4K viewing. Then you can see 4K YouTube content on your TV. Just be aware, you're doing all this through your internet service, and if you don't have a really huge package for bandwidth, you're going to cap your bandwidth real quick, because 4K uses up an immense amount of internet bandwidth just for even a 10-minute video to watch. So could you imagine what it's going to chew up on your Netflix or your Amazon Prime watching a 4K movie for the next 2 to 3 hours? You know, that's going to be quite heavy suckage on your bandwidth. So you better have a good package too, not just for cap-wise, but for speed-wise, to avoid the buffering issues that are going to happen. Minecraft's going a little nutty in the background here. So you got to seriously think about this. I mean, now here's the upshot. This is the upshot to buying a 4K TV for your living room. The upshot is this: even though you're not going to be able to view any content in 4K unless you go with a 4K DVD Ultra HD player for Blu-ray and get the appropriate movies in 4K, or blah 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 on your smart TV side with your thing. Those are the ways you're going to be able to do it. But if you're not going to do that stuff, you're never going to get 4K on that TV. However, you will still get a really sweet 1080p picture. It's not upscaled to 4K. Keep that in mind. You're not upscaling here. It is just able to put the picture on there. It's going to do it in 1080p on a big screen. It is going to look really, really nice once you get your TV settings figured out. Every manufacturer has what they think are their best settings. Well, their best settings might be for a 4K viewing experience, but not for a 1080p viewing experience. We noticed that, like I said, we played a Blu-ray movie and everything was whacked out, you know, and it's like, okay, now I gotta spend some time tuning this in because none of the settings are giving me exactly what I should be getting, because I knew those movies and I know the coloration, I know the graphics and how they should be punched, and they weren't really doing that well. So it took tweaking. So I'm definitely not within the Bulva specs of what they recommend. I'm quite a bit off, but where I'm at works absolutely perfect. So I may have to retweak things again once we get a 4K Blu-ray player and some 4K movies. I may have to retweak that because I'm also going to be pushing to the 4K level. I just got to remember that every time we watch a regular DVD after that, even on the same player, I'm going to have to downscale the TV back to 2K, and I may or may not have to reset my settings every time just to do that. So there are pros and cons to this, but these are the things you're not being told, guys. When you're buying these TVs or 4K monitors for your computers, you're not being told about the extras that you're going to have to be spending. And in the computer world, you're going to be spending a boatload extra on your PC to get a 4K resolution going. I mean, it's just the way it works. And yet people say Macs are more expensive. I think they got rocks in their head on that one, because yeah, I'm sorry, but Macs are not more expensive. You definitely get more bang for your buck. But that's just the way it goes. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Got a lot of good information out of it. I'm still learning new stuff all the time. I'm still constantly researching things. You know, and I think it's really unfair that we're not told these things when we go and buy them, because it may change our minds for some of us. I mean, we were somewhat content with our 42-inch LG TV, you know, and it's only 1080p, but I kind of wanted a bigger TV, and besides, after, what is it, about 14, 15 years we've had that TV, it still looks and works like brand new, which is great. I love LG products. But we wanted an upgrade. And everything nowadays, you're going to be buying big screens. You're getting these 4K displays and 8K displays, but you're not getting what you pay for when you bring it home. You're going to have to spend a lot of extra money just to get that viewing pleasure of real 4K footage. And yeah, for us, we're not streaming videos just to watch a 4K movie. But we don't mind spending a couple $100s on a 4K Blu-ray machine and buying some specific 4K movies. But like I said, there's not a lot of titles out there in 4K for movies, because even those have to be rewritten just like video games, and that's very costly. And that's why I cannot understand or fathom why they're even pushing 8K TVs out now, because they can't even keep up with 4K at this point. What's 8K going to do? Absolutely nothing for you. I wouldn't even consider wasting one penny on an 8K TV for probably another 6-7 years, maybe. Then start buying the 8K TV sets, because by then they may actually have 15 or 20 titles on 8K. And what's the real difference going to be anyways? I mean, seriously. You know, think about that. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, drop a sub. Click on that bell for notifications. I've always got new content going up all the time. And hey, you know, leave your comments below. Tell me what you think about all this stuff. And do you think we're actually being treated fairly, being ripped off? Definitely deceived, that's for sure. Anyways, see ya.